showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
All right, welcome to episode 211 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris Hollifield. I am your host. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you so much for checking it out. Today on the podcast, I sit down with managing editor of Slug Magazine, Alexander Ortega. We have a great conversation. I get a chance to find out his story. We talk music. We talk Slug Magazine. Really, really cool conversation. I'm going to be getting into that here in just a minute. I want to tell you about our sponsor, Oleo Skin and Beard. You could check them out online at oleoskin.com. Really great local Salt Lake City company. They make beard oils, skin oils, tattoo oils, beard balms, all kinds of cool stuff. Go check out their website. And if you've ever wanted to purchase anything, now is the opportunity to do that. If you use the promo code IAMSaltLake, it's going to give you 25% off of your entire purchase when you purchase that online. So head on over to oleoskin.com and check that out. I'm sure you know by now about the next I Am Salt Lake Live. It's happening this upcoming Saturday, February 27th at Watchtower Cafe, located at 1588 South State Street. The show starts at 7 o'clock. It is a free show, so I would recommend getting there early. That way you can get in, as capacity is a bit limited this time. So head on over there early, 1588 South State Street, where you can find Watchtower Cafe. It's going to be a really fun night. I'm going to be chatting with Kevin Kirk from the Heavy Metal Shop, Shane Smith, he's a local Salt Lake City stand-up comedian, and Brian Bingham, he's a local Salt Lake City musician. Really, really cool night. The live show is sponsored by Utah Musicians Radio. They'll actually be streaming it live. You can listen in at amr.fm, select Utah, and listen in there as well. Hopefully, if everything goes well, I hope to be periscoping the live show as well. So hopefully you're connected with me on Twitter or Facebook. That way you can join in there as well if for some reason you're not able to make it out to the actual live show. I want to thank all of you who have been purchasing merch, purchasing a t-shirt or hoodie or a coffee mug from the I Am Salt Lake shop at iamsaltlake.com. I know I just announced it last week on the podcast, but there's a lot of you that have been purchasing stuff from there. So it's a great way to support the show. It's a great way to help I Am Salt Lake with funding to help keep the podcast alive. So if you haven't had an opportunity to purchase a t-shirt or a hoodie or any of that, go to iamsaltlake.com, click the shop tab, check it out. Really, really cool stuff there on the website. I got all kinds of cool things happening, all kinds of stuff that I'm excited to share with everybody. Really, really cool things. So connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I don't care. Just connect with me, as I'll be telling everybody about everything if I don't get an opportunity to talk about it here on the podcast. Like I said, Alexander Ortega, he's on this episode of the podcast. He's got all kinds of cool stuff that he shares with us in this conversation. We talk about his music. We talk about a show he's doing that's coming up. We talk about Slug Magazine. It was all recorded at the Utah Musicians Radio studios here in Salt Lake City. So with that being said, join me now as we chat and I find out his story and get to know him a little bit better. You know what? I want to right off the bat, just because sometimes, people might not catch it at the very end, but you have a show coming up March 3rd. I want to get into it a little further in the interview, but let's plug that right off the bat for people that might only make it this far into the podcast. So hopefully they listen further, but let's plug that right off the bat there.
Yeah. So I am doing an album support show on March 3rd at Urban Lounge. That's a Thursday evening, and it's a free show. And so you're probably wondering, how is it an album support show? So they're being kind enough to give me a percentage of the bar. So basically you go.
That's really rad.
Yeah, it's super cool. And so it's free, and go and buy yourself and your friends many drinks. The other bands who are performing are It Foot, It Ears, Albino Father, and Scary Uncle Steve. And yeah, I'm really excited about this lineup. I think it's going to be a really fun show.
And so March 3rd, that's what day of the week is that? Is
Thursday.
It Thursday night, free show. And I want to get into that obviously here further on into the conversation. Urban Lounge, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I guess doors at 8, 9.
Yeah.
Urban Lounge type style for people. Well, cool. I want to find out a little bit about your story, though, kind of a little bit about you. We're going to do that here and then get into music. And I mean, you got all kinds of things that you're involved in. But I want to find out, where do you call home? Where's home? Where did you grow up? Let's even go a little bit there for a minute.
I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so...
Born and raised. And I am originally from Glendale, which is a neighborhood in the southwest corner of Salt Lake City. Sure.
And I lived there up through eighth grade. And, it's a West Side neighborhood, and it kind of has the connotations of such. But I'm really proud to be from Glendale. My grandma still lives there, and it's a really great place. Going to school, it was very multicultural. Got to interact with many people whose heritage had come from around the world.
Did you come from a big family, big or medium family? On my dad's side, I'm his only son. And with my mom and my stepfather, I have 3 brothers. And so you and I had very similar families, really. I mean, that's kind of how it was for me. I was the only child from my mom and dad, and then, getting married, you have other siblings come on, and they're your brother and sister. I mean, they're 3
brothers actually.
Okay. Yeah.
And so in a literal sense, I do have a really big family, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And, so 3 sets of grandparents was always pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so
pretty close to them all too, right? You're pretty close to your family and the grandparents and all that. Or?
Yeah, I am pretty close to them.
That's great.
And then the second part to the question was, once I was 13 and a half or so, we moved to the exact opposite corner of the city, which was, people call it Federal Heights, but it's actually, the neighborhood's actually called Arlington Hills.
Okay.
And so,
how was that for you at 13 years old? Was that a little bit of a shock or changer, or not
it
so
was much? Like a culture shock, but you're changing so much when you're that age anyway, that it was just, and I was changing so much during that time that looking back at it, it wasn't like a horrible thing. I was glad we didn't move to Arizona.
Was it tough? Because I mean, you said 13 years old, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have a driver's license, so it's not like you can go hang out with your friends. Was it tough to leave your friends?
I was sort of in a transitionary stage in my life at that stage. I was in a transitionary stage at that point. And so in certain respects it was, and I felt like my kind of hometown pride a little injured, leaving Glendale, where there's a lot of neighborhood pride there. Sure. But at the same time, we were commuting me to school at Bryant, and that's on the east side. And so I had east side friends too. And so
you were living in Glendale, but going to a different school on the east side.
Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of already had some friends in that area.
Exactly. And then, believe it or not, Arlington Hills is in West High's district. Okay. Or not district, jurisdiction. And so, I would take the school bus over to West.
Do a lot of kids do that? I mean, with going to different schools and kind of, I guess they do, I mean, I don't have kids and so I don't know exactly how all that works when you go to different schools in different districts, but
yeah, I believe so. My little brother, my youngest brother, he's not really little anymore. He's 16, and he goes to SLCSE, which is the Salt Lake Academy for Science Education.
You kind of go, I guess, where you feel has the best education for yourself. But what were you like as a kid? I mean, did you get into trouble a lot, or were you a pretty good kid?
I was a pretty good kid. I'd do some stupid stuff here and there, but overall, I was a pretty good kid. Followed the rules and whatnot, and so. And
you're not just saying that because it's recorded, right? You're like, no, I was a good kid.
I was a pretty good kid. Maybe a little spoiled, I would think, but. Yeah. Maybe don't put that in there.
Well, I want to jump right into music. Actually, let's talk about music. I mean, what instruments do you play? I mean, just guitar, or do you play? You play guitar, right? Or no?
Yes.
So you play guitar.
Yes, I play guitar, and I sing / do vocals.
Sure. Do you play any other instruments or no?
I can play the bass, but I'm a strong proponent for bass players being having their own kind of musician identity, and actually, it takes a lot of different skills to be good at the bass. So I can play the bass, but I don't believe that if you're a guitar player, you're just automatically going to be good at bass. So I don't really count it, but I could play it in a band if I needed to.
Are you self-taught then? Do you take lessons or how young were you? I mean, what? Talk about that. I mean, so you're not self-taught then?
I'm not. Okay. I took lessons. My parents enrolled me in community group lessons at Sorensen Multicultural Center from my teachers Maggie and Julie. Maggie was on Tuesdays, Julie was on Thursdays. Maybe it was the other way around, but in any case, and they were amazing guitar teachers. They taught you on all like classical guitars and really good at teaching fundamentals. Very patient people. And so I did that for a few years.
How old were you? What?
Started when I was, that's a good question.
I mean, under 10 years old, 8 years old. I mean,
I was either 11 or 12. Okay. Now,
I can even tighten this up here too.
Right. I think I was 11.
Okay.
And so,
did you want to play music? Like, was this an interest or was this forced on you?
It was sort of a mild interest. I was like, well, I got an acoustic guitar for Christmas, so
sure.
I might as well do it. I was into rap music growing up.
Really?
And so,
like
it was like the 90s.
Like what rap were you listening to?
Like Master P, Make Him Say,
Okay. I mean, well, that's the stuff I was listening to.
And
you know what I mean?
Lil Troy, Want to Be a Baller, stuff like that. And so it's kind of hard to connect the guitar to
you wanted to play music that you were listening to, so you're like, well, how do I play guitar?
And so that I was just kind of mildly interested in playing guitar, but then when I was in 8th grade, I just got tired of listening to rap music basically, and I just started listening to Blink-182 and Green Day.
The good stuff, man. That was what all teenagers should be listening to.
Exactly. And then you go through the phase in high school, it's just like, I don't even like that stuff, man. But
so you when you started taking guitar lessons, though, you were listening to a lot of rap then,
yeah.
Right? Was it tough for you to? I want to. Maybe even for my own selfish reason, because I remember back when I was younger. And like I took a lot of violin lessons. Okay.
Oh, cool. Do you still know how to play?
No, not really. I wish I probably could pick it up and learn it, but I was about 11, 12, 13. And there was nothing that I can incorporate the music with.
Right.
So it was I didn't have that passion and that drive. Was that the same way for you?
It kind of was.
You were arms twisted.
Yeah, I didn't really have a reference point for something that I connected with at that point in my life. But then, like, once friends started introducing me to punk music, and the
Blink-182,
yeah, and my dads they've always been like rock guys, so I had those reference points. But once I realized what underground music was, then it was
it was
like,
awesome,
I like this punk stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you come from a musical family then? Like you said, your dad was a rock fan, or was it just the music he was listening to?
So, yes, not my whole family in its entirety, but my biological father, he plays a couple different instruments. He plays the flute, plays the sax, plays the trombone. So he was a band kid growing up. And then his dad, my grandfather, plays the piano, and he's self-taught, and he plays traditional Mexican songs on the piano. Then on my mom's side, her dad sang and played guitar. They're from New Mexico, and so that kind of has its own musical tradition. And
sure.
That was the type, that plus stuff like Elvis and Johnny Cash, that kind of rockabilly Americana type of sound. That's what he played.
Were you influenced at all by that as a young kid? Did you look up to that at all? Do you think that maybe even helped you with your music at all? Or
I think it does now.
Okay.
And I appreciated it when I was younger, but it was more about I considered it more ancestral heritage, and when you're an adolescent boy, sometimes those things aren't necessarily like what's cool or something.
Sure.
But now I look back on it, and my grandfather who played guitar and sang, he passed away that year when I actually started guitar lessons, and so I wish he was still around because to teach me those songs, Spanish language songs from New Mexico. But I've kind of been looking into it, and maybe down the line I'll go visit my family there and see if they can teach me a thing or two. And so
that'd be awesome, man. What would you? I mean, is there an instrument that you would love to learn? Like
man,
gosh, I wish I could play like the mandolin or something like that.
I think. Well, I'm always like air drumming and stuff, and I can like fool around on the drums and keep a beat and whatnot. And that would be kind of an easy answer, but I think clarinet.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What clarinet?
I don't know. It's just a sexy instrument, man.
It's an obscure one, though. I mean, I wouldn't expect that from you.
And there's also like a utilitarian aspect. I'd like to be able to somehow incorporate it into my solo project music. The Alexander Ortega is the band name, and which is my name, obviously, and to put it into that project.
Yeah, that would be cool. Well, let's talk about bands, and then obviously get up to your current project. But I'm sure you were forming bands, right? As a teenager, or no?
Yes.
Okay. What? How old were you? What was your first band? Let's talk about that.
When I was 14, close to being 15, I started a band called The Fray. Later on, that band was the Fray from Colorado. I still think of us as the real Fray, to be honest with you. But the Fray from Colorado, who's like this big band, this big like alt rock band. Their lawyer emailed me, and I was 15 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you nervous?
I was just like, "Is this a joke?" Because I thought it was just some like kids in another band.
Yeah.
Who were messing with us. I was like, is this a joke or is this a prank? And the lawyer's just like, I assure you, this is not a joke. Please cease and desist. And I was just like, great.
How did they even hear about you? I mean, were they just doing like searches on the internet or something? Or well, you probably weren't even on the internet.
That's my guess, but in a way we were, because we had a website, and we played a battle of the bands, the youth battle of the bands at the library. I think that's what tipped them off.
Did you have any like recordings of the band or anything out there?
I think we did. It's kind of hazy in hindsight, but I think we had some
You don't
demos.
now. You don't now. You don't own any of the demos now.
I own them.
Oh, you do. You do.
The internet doesn't own them anymore.
Well, let's get a website up, and we'll put them up there, and we'll do a special release with the podcast. And I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But yeah, that was the band that I formed, also with Luke Tatum, Nick Slayman, and our friend Chris Eckel. And we were a street punk band, and we started playing shows as young teenagers at this old coffee shop called The Underground, which was right next to Uprock.
Okay.
On
I remember that. I remember that.
And there was this guy, Gabe, who ran it. He was the coolest dude.
Now, is it by the current Uprock, or when it was downtown? Like, remember the Uprock
Downtown.
when it was like on like 4th South there?
That one.
Okay.
So it was right, and there was a coffee shop called Uprock. There used to be tons of punk shows there. And it was styled, like the logo for the coffee shop was stylized as being like a hip-hop space, but they threw a ton of punk shows there.
If it's a place I'm thinking of, I remember going to shows there years ago.
And it was spelled, it was underground, so UNDAGROUNDZ.
There's some Salt Lake history for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to that place. Probably just closed up and.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Like anything else in Salt Lake, right?
Yeah.
So that was your big band. Or the Fray. That was kind of your more prized band of your teenage years. Or,
yes.
Were you always making bands after that, or were you always playing music, or what's that story like for you?
In a practical sense, yes, always playing music. So we changed our name to Le Fray after we got that that attorney email, and we kept doing that up until I went to college, and then we just kind of figured we'd change the band name, so we changed it to Dirty Vespucci's.
I like that too.
Yeah, and at that point, Kai, who was in the very first band I was in, had joined the band, and he thought of the name. And so, yeah, it was a play on words for Dirty Americans, Dirty Vespucci. So
I guess just to kind of speed the timeline a little bit to your current, just Alexander Ortega, I mean, how many bands would you say that you were probably in between that time and present day? If you were to guess.
Let's see.
Any bands that anybody would maybe
5 or 6
listening that would maybe really know? Or
I was in Vina Cava a couple years ago.
Okay.
And for a brief period, I was in a band called Horse Corpse with, and the singer is Sarah Edge. She is a bartender. Right? I don't know where she's working right now, but she was the vocalist. And so, it was called Horse Corpse.
What do you playing music? What do you like the most about playing music, or what's the most rewarding thing for you?
I think that that's a really tough question.
If you want to think about it for a second, even, or I don't know. I mean, is there a few things that pop to mind or come to mind?
I'm thinking about in a college course that I took. We were studying medieval works of literature, and there was Gawain, the Green Knight, and in the context of leading up to that, maybe it was around Beowulf or something like that, but we were discussing sort of the spirituality of Anglo-Saxons, and basically their religion or their spirituality was focused on the sort of mania of war and like working themselves into a sort of slobbering anger when they went to war against other armies. And so I've played mostly like punk music, aggressive music, and starting out, I felt, and I still feel this with my current punk band, Filth Lords, but just kind of a similar sort of, I don't know, sense that I think that those Anglo-Saxon warrior guys were feeling when they went to war, because it's just very aggressive and
sure, I like that though.
And so it's
that's a great answer. I like that.
And so it kind of gives me a sort of
like a sense of like a
release, and a sense of solace at the same time, especially when I'm playing an instrument at the same time. And I'm the type of person who likes to have their cake and eat it too. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I'm able to achieve that when I play music. And as I've evolved as a musician, I can still channel that into the Alexander Ortega project, even if we're not like playing something super crazy, although it can get kind of crazy.
Yeah. What would you say as a musician, kind of on that same note, the most challenging thing? Like, what's the hardest part about being a musician?
I think it's balancing it with the life that you kind of have to live, work and paying bills, things like that.
Relationships, friendships, probably, right? Is it because you feel like you could just get sucked up into it and you want to like play music all the time, or what?
It's just making time, really.
Sure.
Yeah.
Finding other people to even want to play music with you, I guess, that have the same passion, the same drive. Well, let's talk some more about your current project, Alexander Ortega. It's not just yourself. There's a couple other people that play with you, right?
Yeah. So on drums is Camilo Torres, and he is in a legendary Salt Lake kind of avant hardcore band called Trebuchet, and he is playing with brushes, and he's a self-taught drummer, and he makes really amazing beats and drum work. Then there's Nick Harris, and he plays acoustic bass. He's in Filth Lords with me.
Okay.
And Filth Lords is my punk band with Rio Connolly and Nick. Rio Connolly is an astounding, incredibly creative drummer, and we've been doing Filth Lords for coming on 5 years now.
So you have a pretty good, chemistry.
Yes.
And you know how to play music. It's probably tough to find people to play music with that you have that chemistry. Or yes or no? Or I mean,
I think so. Yeah. I
yeah.
think, speaking as a guitarist, I think that when you play with a drummer, you can play with, most any kind of drummer, but there's kind of like some magic that happens or something that clicks between a guitarist and a drummer. I feel like that can really make for great music and can really make for a sort of band and musical relationship that both parties are interested in doing.
So the show that you're doing at Urban Lounge, again on March 3rd, it's to raise money to record an album?
Yes.
Correct? Have you recorded an album as Alexander Ortega yet, or is this the very first one?
This is the very first one. I recorded a demo, and then I just kind of scrapped that, and most recently I recorded a 3-song EP that people can hear at alexanderortega.bandcamp.com.
Okay, yeah, because I was checking out some of the music, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's great. I'll put the links at iamsaltlake.com with this, but alexanderortega.bandcamp.com. People, you download it and buy it right there on the website, I think, right? Yeah. I mean, how did this come about? You might have mentioned it at the beginning, so I apologize. With Urban Lounge, you were like, I need to raise funds to record, and they said, hey, do this here, I guess.
More or less, yeah.
Sure.
I am fortunate to work at Slug with contributors who also work for Sartain and Sanders.
Yeah.
Or, excuse me, who work for Sartain and Saunders, who book the shows for Urban and for Kilby. And Nick Smith works for them, and he is a copy editor and a fact check. Let me restart that. He's a fact checker, and he is a contributing writer for Slug, and a really talented guy. And I kind of asked him about doing it at Kilby Court. Or actually, I asked another Slug contributor, a Slug copy editor, Izzy Flowers, and I think she kind of relayed it to him, and then he approached me about doing it at Urban instead of Kilby. And so...
No, it's great, man.
And we locked it in.
This is great. And locked it in, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have like a plan? Like where are you going to get it recorded at? Here in Salt Lake? Or
at Counterpoint Studios with Kent Rigby.
Okay. And you've obviously probably recorded with him before. Right?
I've not.
First time.
Slug did a story on Counterpoint Studios and Midnight Records and Utah Arts Alliance. Those three are kind of all in the same nexus under the wing of Utah Arts Alliance. And I read about them, and Counterpoint Studios is a really professional studio who make affordable recording possible for locals.
But it's tough, the expenses. That's why the show is good to come out and help you out, support you.
Yeah.
Because it gets expensive, man. I know how it is even with this podcast. It's like, it gets tough to try to fund everything yourself, and keep it. Have you played outside the U.S. at all?
No.
Or not the U.S., but outside of Utah, excuse me.
Yes.
Have you played outside of Utah?
In 2013, I went on a little mini tour, just me and my guitar, and then my BFF, Sam Hansen, who he now lives in New York, but he is a modern dancer who has a big part of the dance scene in Salt Lake and Utah. But he went with me as kind of like, my roadie almost or whatnot. And I played in Missoula, Vashon Island, Washington, and Portland.
Was that fun?
It was super fun.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah.
Would you? I mean, I'm assuming you would like to get back out there again, right? Hit the road a little bit, or no?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I just kind of with this project, I just want to be very purposeful, and I'm a little slow moving, to be honest. But yeah, I would like to do it if I can get the other guys on board.
Absolutely. Well, let's say you got a phone call right after this podcast interview, and it was from somebody, and they're like, you get to go on tour with this band. What would be like your ultimate dream band to go on a tour of the United States with? Dead or alive? I mean, obviously This is all just for fun.
I think that's a 2-part answer.
Okay.
For my project, for Alexander Ortega, Probably Timber Timbre. And for Filth Lords, probably Cocksparrer.
That'd be a fun band to tour with. But no, it's just a fun question, just to kind of see, who you're spending those days on the road with, and whatnot. But you've mentioned Slug a few times. I want to talk about Slug for a little bit. What is your role at Slug?
I'm the managing editor at Slug Magazine.
In which people listening, what is it? What do you do? What's a day like for you, or what does your job entail?
So mainly my job entails coordinating coverage at this stage, coordinating coverage and making sure that that coverage happens. And the days range. One day I might be editing / copy editing a document. The next day I might be working in InDesign.
So no two days are the same. You're kind of which is great in my opinion, right? You never get bored. You probably are always going.
There's always something to do.
Sure.
And so, but yeah, I guess days can be similar, but I wouldn't say that any 2 days are the same.
Sure. And how long have you been at Slug? Like, when did that start for you? How did that come about?
I started writing and copy editing for Slug in an official capacity after my trial period in April of 2010. And then I became the junior editor and a paid staffer in February of 2012.
So you put some dues, some time there. And it must... It's got to be just a fun atmosphere to work there.
It is
a really great team. A great publication. Look at I got my Slug tattoo right there on my arm. From their 25th anniversary.
That was a fun party, man.
Yeah. That was. I guess that's a silly thing to talk about on the podcast, but Slug has always got a soft spot in my heart, and obviously Slug's always taking volunteers, right? Like for writing and stuff like that, or how does that work? How does that process work? Because you mentioned like even before you started writing, what you're doing now, you kind of just was like an intern or something, or
I would say 95 to 98%. That's just a guess, but about 95% of the staff volunteer for Slug because they're passionate about writing, they're passionate about photography, or they're passionate about music, or whatever their beat might be. Copy editors are passionate about grammar, and they copy edit once a week for us. And so it's a team of dedicated people who love their beat, who love their craft, who love doing what they do.
Now, did you go to school for that then, or what did you go to school for?
I majored in English literature.
Okay, so perfect thing for. Is this kind of like what? Is this kind of what you thought? Okay, I want to go to school, and this is what I want to do, or what did you have like a dream of something you wanted to do, or is that kind of a fair question? I guess for recording purposes. I don't know.
I feel like once I got involved with Slug,
that you knew that's what you wanted to do.
I wanted to be on the editorial team.
Sure.
While I was at school, and this was before I was on the editorial team, I was playing with the idea of basically being an academic, and so.
Well, cool, man. And so when you're not playing music and you're not involved with Slug, what are some other hobbies and interests of Alexander? What are some other things that keep you busy or you enjoy doing?
Well, music and Slug do keep me pretty busy, but I've taken to kind of being more of a homebody lately. Honestly,
that's just part of getting old. You know what I mean.
I love spending time with my girlfriend and her family and my family, and that's something that I would say I'm really passionate about doing.
Absolutely, man. Connecting with people and And now, actually, back to Slug for just a second. You have done some of the podcast stuff, right? You do some of the podcasts with the sound waves, or is that a regular thing that you do, or you've just filled it in here and there?
I kind of fill in when I'm needed. It used to be a little bit more regular sometimes, but basically, usually what I do these days is I'll introduce an episode, kind of like how you will.
Yeah.
and then record like an outro.
Do you like that? Do you like podcasting?
I really do, actually. I like listening to Doug Fabrizio a lot. And
he is just such a rad guy, man.
He is.
I got a chance to chat with him for a few minutes for a podcast episode. Oops, my microphone fell down there. I got a chance to chat with him for a few minutes on a podcast episode, and it was just like, gosh, he's just such a rad guy. But yeah, I know. I was just curious. I wanted to pull that into this recording with sound waves. So people even listening, go check out the Slug podcast. I mean,
yeah, it's Slug Sound Waves.
Yeah, you guys do a bang up job with that. But next question: most memorable concert or sporting event?
Or sporting event.
Yeah, either one. I like to throw both of those.
With the sporting event, did you have to be at the sporting event?
However you interpret it.
Okay, so first concert, best one was Cox Bar in Chicago in 2010.
Wow.
Went on a road trip with some friends.
Just to go see them.
Yeah. And it was worth it. It was so cool. I was on cloud nine. Best concert of my whole life. Best sporting event.
Are you a sports guy?
Oh, I'm a Utah Jazz fan, but I don't have like cable, so it's kind of hard for me to watch the games and whatnot, but I'll be a Jazz fan for life, which brings me to my sporting event answer. When Stockton took the Utah Jazz to the NBA Finals. That was a magical moment. The stuff dreams were made of.
But you that was on TV. You didn't actually go see that.
I was not in Houston that night.
You were not in Houston. You didn't take a road trip to Houston.
I was like 10 years old and just like on the couch. But
if you could learn a random skill, anything fun or silly or real, or I'm not real, but serious, anything. Like I had a person on the podcast that was learning to be a ventriloquist.
Oh, wow.
If you could learn something random.
If I could learn something random. Well, okay, when you say random, can it be something I'm ostensibly interested in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. I'd like to learn how to brew beer.
Really?
Yeah. Rio Connolly, who's in Phil Thords with me, he is a brewer. The brewer and a co-owner of Avenues Proper, and they're going to be opening up their new location, Proper Bar downtown, and Proper Burger. But Rio is an amazing brewer, and I think, man, I want to know how to brew.
Have you ever talked to him and said, "Teach me your ways, teach me your skills"?
Oh yeah, but then it just comes to a time thing.
Sure.
So.
I've thought it'd be fun, just go to the beer nut and you get the whole setup and start brewing it in your bathroom or your garage or something like that. That'd be fun. Cider's kind of what I'd like to learn how to do some hard ciders myself. But do you have a go-to karaoke song?
I have a couple. Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy, 2 Minutes to Midnight by Iron Maiden, and then the real one-hitter quitter, Everything I Do It For You by Bryan Adams.
That would be a good one.
Man.
I should try Bryan Adams. If you were on death row, what would you ask for your final meal?
That's the toughest question you've asked me so far.
Really?
Man, I think I would have a New Mexican style enchilada, which is a stacked enchilada. And so it's not rolled like what you typically see. It's you fry a tortilla in oil, you put beans and onions, pinto beans and onions, another tortilla on top, then just drench it in red chili sauce, and then you put cheese, lettuce, tomato on top.
That sounds delicious.
Oh, it is.
Gosh. When am I coming over to your house for dinner?
Whatever you want, man.
Okay, let's hear. If someone was visiting Salt Lake for one day, they've maybe never been here, what would you tell them to go check out or go visit or do? What would you tell them to do during that one day?
Just one place, or?
Well, yeah, like say an afternoon or just a day. Like, hey, go check this out. Go check this out.
I would say try and go to southern Utah.
Okay, so you would just get them out of Salt Lake. Don't even spend time in Salt Lake.
It's not even so much the don't spend time in Salt Lake part.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just Southern Utah is just so beautiful and phenomenal. But then I'd have it when they came back, because assuming that they, drive really fast.
Sure.
And I would tell them to go to the Rest. It's one of my favorite bars. Is the Rest.
The Rest. Why is that? It comes to mind, but my mind is blank.
It's underneath Bodega.
Oh, okay. Yes, absolutely.
And it just has a really great vibe. They play vinyl records there. Has good lighting. There's taxidermy on the walls and odd accoutrements here and there, and it's a nice time.
Favorite local eating spots. Now we're talking about bars. I ask this every person that comes on the show. Is there any places that you would say, you got to eat here? You got to check this out, whether you're a local or not a local? I'm sure especially with that Slug, you get an opportunity to probably try a lot of great, delicious local food.
Man, that's I would say Maza, for sure. I love Maza.
I just ate Maza the other day.
It's so good.
I was there.
My girlfriend and I are like burger people.
Sure.
We're literally made out of hamburgers. And so I would say go to Rye.
Do they have a pretty good burger there?
They do. It's a great burger. But now Proper Burger's coming up, and I gotta shout out to Rio and the Proper guys. So I'm really anxious to see what Proper Burger's going to be like.
I'll have to go try that out.
And then Eva. Love Eva.
Eva Bakery right there on Main Street.
Actually, Eva, not Eva's Bakery. Eva is on Main Street, but it's between 3rd and 4th South.
Okay. I'm wondering.
And small plates.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I know where you're. Yeah. I know exactly. It's kind of by Cheers to You right there, isn't it?
Yes. It's right next to Cheers.
Yeah. I haven't been. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. But speaking of back to burgers, I'm just curious because I'm a big fan of the Lucky 13 burger.
Oh, I love Lucky 13.
And so I'm wondering...
Nut butter burger?
Yeah, well, the nut butter burger, that's like my all-time favorite burger.
So good.
From there. Compared to the other burgers that you recommended, like at Rye. Or were they kind of equal? Are they, they're good burgers?
I think they're kind of equal. I think it depends on what you're looking for.
Sure.
I feel like with Lucky 13, it's about the burger synergy. Each part plays a great role into making a great cheeseburger. Whereas with Rye, I just think I really like the way they cook the meat.
I'll have to go. I went to Rye for brunch. I haven't done the burger thing there at Rye, but and they, it's great. The great thing about Rye is it's right there by Urban. Actually, boom, there you go. People can go to Rye at your show on the 3rd.
Exactly.
If they've never been to Rye, you can go before or after the show. And what would you change about Salt Lake? Is there anything that you would change about it that you would like to see different?
Probably the alcohol laws. I think that intimidates a lot of people.
That's the most answered. That's the most the question that's how most people answer that question.
Yeah, so. The inversion.
Yeah, well, especially these last couple days. Oh my gosh,
it's been a spooky time.
What would you want written on your tombstone? What would you want written on your tombstone when you die?
I want to make a tombstone pizza joke, but okay. I think I would
do it, man. You do the tombstone pizza joke.
I think
whatever you want here, man.
I think I'd just go the traditional like name, date of birth, date of death route.
No fancy saying or quote or anything.
I want people to be afraid of going by my grave at night. So just the more mystery we can impart to it, I think the better. Like, there's a ghost here.
I like it. Well, let's run down the list. How can people contact you? The show on the 3rd. Let's see. Well, let's start with the show on the 3rd again. March 3rd, Urban Lounge. I'll let you kind of talk a little bit more about that as we close out the podcast here.
This project consists of me on acoustic guitar, acoustic bass, and drums played with brushes. I also do throat singing, which I feel, it helps the project kind of be a little bit more interesting than just being a rock band or something. And so throat singing, I kind of picked up when my dad saw Genghis Blues and got a compilation called Deep in the Heart of Tuva. Well, I didn't pick it up then, but I started hearing it then. And then in my early 20s, I started practicing it. And so it's kind of, the overall band sound it's kind of spooky, and it's a little hard to describe sometimes too. And so
yeah, but come out March 3rd, check you out.
Yeah.
And the other bands playing?
The other bands are It Foot, It Ears, which are a kind of avant-garde rock duo. Sometimes they have a trombonist too. Albino Father. They are kind of in the psych genre, but I wouldn't pigeonhole them as just being a psych band. They're really creative, and they create really just bouncy tunes that are kind of weird sometimes in a really good way, and they're just really fun. And then Scary Uncle Steve, which they're kind of like a folk punk band, and they have an accordion and a cocktail drum kit. I
like that.
And they have members of Desolate, of Endless Struggle, of Dubbed, of Shackleton, and so it's going to be a cool show.
Yeah, man, I'll definitely have that. Have that on my calendar, March 3rd, to check that out. Actually, I'll put at iamsaltlake.com with this show. I'll put the link to the Facebook event, so
that would be
people
awesome.
can check that out and even invite friends that way as well, or post it on Facebook and support local. I think that's one thing. To make Salt Lake City, in my opinion, a great city is if everybody was to just support each other.
Yeah.
Musicians supporting musicians, and I guess, non-musicians supporting musicians too. But go down the list. How can people get in touch with you, connect with you, contact you?
You can email me at alexander.r.ortega@gmail.com.
Cool.
I'm going to make a proper Alexander Ortega band Facebook profile, so watch out for that.
Okay.
And otherwise, you can message me on Facebook.
Anything else you want to talk about before we close this out? I've had a great time chatting with you.
I've had a great time too, Chris. And then watch out for Filth Lords. That's the next band that I'm going to be recording an album with. So hopefully that's soon.
Cool, man.
And you can check out Filth Lords at filthlords.bandcamp.com. So the two takeaways, filthlords.bandcamp.com, alexanderortega.bandcamp.com.
All right. Many thanks goes out to Alexander Ortega. Great guy. Really cool conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And go check him out March 3rd at Urban Lounge if you get an opportunity. Like you said, it's a free show. So head on over there, grab a drink, and check out some great live music from some really cool Salt Lake City bands. All of the links to connect with him, connect with his Bandcamp, you can find at iamsaltlake.com/211 for episode 211. Connect with him. Let him know you heard him on I Am Salt Lake podcast. And, anyway, I know I've chatted about Lyft in the past. I got a great offer for the podcast listeners. If you've never used Lyft to get around Salt Lake City, it's a great way to, head on out to the bars. If you need to go to an airport, if you need to get to Park City, I got a promo code I Am Salt Lake. Enter that in. Download. Well, first of all, you're going to want to download the app from your app store on your phone. Enter in the promo code I Am Salt Lake. It's going to give you $5 off of 10 rides. So like a $50 value. Really good deal. Check them out. This is a great way to support the podcast as well. A great way to try Lyft out. It's LYFT. Great way to get around Salt Lake City. So again, the website, iamsaltlake.com. It's where you can listen to all the previous episodes. You can find the podcast in iTunes, Stitcher Radio, however you listen to podcasts. Check out the shop, buy some merch. Tag me on Instagram, tag me on social media. That way I could check it out. I'd love to see some I Am Salt Lake t-shirts on all of the listeners. That's going to do it for this episode. I'm sure I'll see a lot of you out at the live show happening Saturday, February 27th at Watchtower Cafe, 1588 South State Street. Come up and say hi. For the love of God, please come up and say hi to me. I love to meet the listeners. I love to meet each and every one of you. It's going to be a really, really fun night. So that's going to do it. That's it for this episode. I'm here every week. So subscribe in however you listen to podcasts. Subscribe in your podcast player. Drop me an email, chris@iamsaltlake.com. I read each and every email, so I'd love to hear from you that way as well. You have a great week. Get out and enjoy the city. Support local, and we'll chat again next time.